Hi guys, it's Kat. Today I'm going to show you how I made these miniature Fender Stratocaster guitars. They're super tiny at only 3 inches tall and has all the detail of its real-life counterpart. They're so much fun to build and only require simple craft supplies you can find anywhere. Let's get started. The first thing I do is draw the body shape on graph paper. To do that, first draw a 1 inch wide by 1 1/4 inch high rectangle. Then split it down the middle for the first guideline. For the second guideline, draw a horizontal line across the rectangle 1/2 inch from the top. Now you can freehand the shape of the guitar body you want. I use a reference image, but you can also trace a photo or print one out. Cut out the image to use as your pattern. For the body itself, I'll be using these giant craft sticks. They're 1 1/4 inches wide and you only need one for a project. Trace the pattern we drew and cut it out with a sharp X-Acto knife. Take your time here. I made 3 of these in total. Grab one and draw a 1/4 inch square at the top center. Cut it out. This will be where we position our neck. Using some wood glue, stack these pieces together with the cutout neck piece on top. Once the glue is dry, take a needle file and sand the wood all around the edges. I use a variety of different shaped files to get into all the curves and edges. For the larger contours on a body, I first make guidelines. The contour on the front is a diagonal line across the bottom left side. The contour on the back is a curve on the right side. To reduce the amount of sanding I'll need to do, I first use my knife to cut down the excess wood. Then I'll sand it. Here's the body all smooth and sanded out. Now we're ready for paint. For leverage, I first grab some coffee stirrers and glue them to the neck area. This allows me to paint the entire body at once. The first color I'm going for is light blue. Mix blue and white acrylic paint for this pastel shade. Then paint it on in layers. I added 2 layers for this opaque coverage. I add on a coat of polyacrylic varnish for some gloss. The second color scheme will be the classic brown sunburst. I first mix raw sienna and burnt sienna acrylic paint with water to create a stain. Add on 2 light coats for this color. Then for the edges, I grab some black paint and a makeup sponge. Rip the sponge up and lightly dab it into the black. Remove the excess. Then dab the black all around the edges. Add the paint on slowly and lighten your touch as you move towards the center. Go slow here because paint's a lot easier to put on than to remove. Make sure to add polyacrylic varnish to all of them. The third guitar gets a coat of this beautiful crimson red. This last one gets a classic black paint job. While the body is dry, let's move on to the neck and headstock. For the template, I first draw a 2 inch high by 1/4 inch wide rectangle. Draw a line 1/2 inch from the top to create 2 rectangles. In the bottom section, draw 2 lines down and outward so it widens at the bottom. In the top section, I freehand the iconic Fender headstock. Cut this pattern out. We'll be using an ordinary popsicle stick for this part, so grab one of those. Trace the pattern onto the stick and cut it out slowly. Be careful not to cut yourself here. Then sand it to smooth out all the rough edges. The first thing I do is thin out the headstock. I use my knife to make a light cut under the headstock, then shave it down. As you can see, it's a very subtle thinning. Then make 21 cuts down the length of the neck, gradually spacing them closer as you get lower. Widen the cuts by cutting deeper into the grooves. We just need enough space for the metal frets. Before we add those, let's also make the openings for the tuners. Along the left side of the headstock, draw 6 dots. Use a tiny hand drill and drill all the way through the wood. This is what you're looking for. Back to the fretboard. Take dark brown acrylic paint and paint it onto the fretboard area. Go slow here and use masking tape as a guide if you need it. For the frets, I'll be using the super thin 28 gauge beading wire. Just snip off a bunch of tiny sections and grab some super glue. Fit the wire pieces into the grooves we cut. This is what you're going for. To ensure that all the frets are secure, I grab a scrap piece of wood and a mallet. Place the wood on top of the fretboard and give it a few good taps. Look at the grooves the frets left behind here. Now we're certain these frets aren't going anywhere. Take your wire snipper again and cut off all the excess wire. I do the same for the fretboards that I didn't paint. For the tuner pegs, I'm using the stick 20 gauge jewelry wire. Just snip off a bunch of segments. Thread them into the holes we drew into the headstock. Snip the wire to leave only a small length on each side. For the tuners, I use medium thickness 24 gauge wire and cut out 6 1/3 inch segments. To ensure a strong hold, I mix equal parts of this Gorilla Glue epoxy. Attach each wire between the pegs on the back of the headstock. Once they're all on, add a bit more epoxy to the top. Once that's dry, cut off the excess wire. You only need a tiny bit sticking out past the head. Next, we'll need a toothpick. Use a sharp knife to cut some very thin slices. Cut a third off each slice so you end up with this shape. Add glue to the ends of the wires and position the slices on top of them. How adorable are these little tuners? To finish the look, I'll be using the silver acrylic paint. This gives the wooden toothpick pieces a metal look. The neck and headstock are all complete. Let's add it to the body. Pull the coffee stirrers off the bodies. Add a dab of wood glue and position the neck snugly into place. These guitars are really starting to come together. With the structure all complete, it's time to move on to the details. For the front markers, simply add a small dot of paint on the center of the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th, 15th, 17th, 19th, and 21st frets. I use cream color paint on the dark fretboard and black acrylic paint on the bare fretboards. Next up is the pickguard. Using the original body template we made all the way at the beginning, draw a pickguard on top of it. I chose to freehand this, but you can also just print out an image from Google. For the pickguard itself, I'm just using recycled plastic packaging. Place the plastic on top of the drawing and trace it with a fine tip Sharpie. Now just cut it out. I cut out all the fine details, but that's not really necessary because most of it will be covered up. Clean the remaining marker off the pickguard with some rubbing alcohol. Because acrylic paint doesn't stick well to plastic, I'm using nail polish to paint them. If you want a bit more pizzazz, try this tip. I take some nail foil in this beautiful iridescent style and add it to the top of the polish. Just stick it on while the polish is still a bit tacky and peel it off. Super easy way to add a little something extra. Add epoxy to the back of the pickguard and adhere it to the body. Because we drew this from the original template, it's a perfect fit. Right under the pickguard, we need a bridge. For that, I'm going to use zip ties. These zip ties have this ribbing texture on both sides. I painted silver to bring out that texture detail and for a metal look. Then cut off a 1/4 inch section. Glue that right underneath the pickguard. Take another zip tie and split it in half lengthwise. Then cut out more 1/4-inch sections. These will be our pickups. Just round out the corners and add a bit of polish for color. We need 3 on each guitar. Here are some white pickups and some black ones. Use epoxy to glue them onto the pickguard. We're not done with the zip ties just yet. Cut a very thin slice and glue it right under the headstock. This will be the nut. Alright, time to string this baby up. I'm using ordinary sewing thread for the string. Because cotton tends to fray just a bit, I first coat them with a bit of clear nail polish. On miniatures, all these tiny details count. Just look at the difference. Once the polish is dry, I take a metallic silver marker and color the strings. You can also use paint here. Cut a 7-inch length and fold it in half. Make 3 of these. Then glue the folded area onto a piece of wire and tie a knot. This creates 2 3.5-inch strings. Do this for all 3 strings. Snip the excess wire off. With a bit of epoxy, glue the wire right underneath the bridge. While that dries, add a few dots of silver paint on the pickups. Pull each string upward towards the headstock and wrap it around a peg. Add a drop of glue to hold the string in place. Do this for all 6 strings. Trim off the excess. Almost there, guys, just a few details left. Let's make the volume and tone knobs. First, drill into the 3 holes on the pickguard. Then cut a segment of 20 gauge wire and push it into the hole. Cut off most of the wire, leaving a little nub. Do this for the other 2 holes as well. Add a drop of white nail polish to each nub. Next to the knobs, we need a 3-way switch. I push a piece of 24 gauge wire into the slot and cut off most of it, leaving just a tiny bit. Then add a drop of white nail polish to the tip of the remaining wire. To make a tremolo, or otherwise known as a whammy bar, cut out a super tiny square from the piece of zip tie. Drill a hole into the middle of it. Then bend a piece of 24 gauge wire at 90 degrees. With a bit of super glue, push the short end into that hole. Paint the plastic zip tie part silver. Then glue it right next to the bridge. Cut the long wire down, leaving 1/2 inch. Add a drop of nail polish to the tip. These details really make this miniature look more realistic. Along that same vein, add a few dots of silver paint around the pickguard where the screw holes would be. These details are so tiny, I'm using the tip of a needle to add this on. Last detail on the front of the body, the jack socket. Draw a thin oval underneath the right side of the pickguard. Then use your knife to carve half of it out. I use a toothpick to add a drop of silver paint inside the carved area. Using a dotting tool, add some silver paint to the outside of the cavity as well. Moving to the sides of the body, let's attach the strap buttons. Using that same tiny hand drill, drill a hole into the center bottom of the body and one right down the top left shoulder. Push 20 gauge wire into the openings and cut off the excess. Last but certainly not least, let's finish the 2 back plates. First up is the neck plate. I painted coffee stirrer silver and cut out a 1/4 inch section. Then glue it to the top center back. The final detail on this guitar is the back plate. I take the same recycled plastic we used for the pickguard and cut out a 1/3 by 1/2 rectangle. Paint it with white nail polish. Once it's dry, glue it to the center back of the guitar. I use a needle to add silver paint around the perimeter to look like screws. Lastly, add a horizontal row of black dots. Here's a bonus tip for all of you who made it to the end of this video. To add designs to these guitars, I like using water decals. Cut out the image you want to use and peel off the top plastic. Drop it in water and leave it for a few minutes. The paper backing will slide off easily and your decal is ready for placement. I add this beautiful flower to the bottom of the red guitar for a custom look. Just make sure to seal it with a coat of clear nail polish or varnish. That's it, guys. These mini Fender Strats are all done. These were so much fun to build and will make a great gift for any music lover in your life. If you decide to make your own, share your pictures with me on Instagram. I love seeing what you guys create. And do let me know if you learned any new tips here today. I hope you guys liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did and make sure to subscribe for more. I'll see you next time. Bye.